Poštovani gledaoci, dobrodošli u Granice istoka. Ja sam Harun Karčić. U ovom specijalnom izdanju emisije iz Dohe analiziramo zbog čega nema pomaka u rješavanju Zaljevske krize i kakvu ulogu igra Iran na Bliskom istoku. Skoro 11 mjeseci je prošlo od kada su Saudijska Arabija, Ujedinjeni Arapski Emirati, Bahrein i Egipat nametnule kopnenu, morsku i zračnu blokadu Kataru pod optužbom da podržava terorizam, da se miješa u interna pitanja susjednih arapskih zemalja i da ima prisne veze sa Iranom. Te zemlje, između ostalog, traži zatvaranje medijske mreže Al Jazeera, optužujući je da širi nered i da podržava terorizam u regiji. Vlada u Dohi odbacuje takve optužbe. Prije razgovora sa našim analitičarima, pogledajmo uvodni prilog o posljednjim dešavanjima u zemljama zaljeva.
Saudijska Arabija, Ujedinjeni Arapski Emirati, Bahrein i Egipat su skoro prije godinu dana prekinuli diplomatske, trgovačke i putničke veze sa Katarom. Optužili su tu zemlju da podržava terorizam i širi nered u regiji. Katarski emir je kazao kako su svi u Dohi bili šokirani iznenadnom blokadom i optužbama susjeda, prije svega zato što su se samo nekoliko sedmica ranije predstavnici islamskih zemalja sastali sa američkim predsjednikom Donaldom Trumpom u Rijadu, kako bi se udružili u zajedničkoj borbi protiv terorizma. Katarski emir smatra da je pravi razlog takvih poteza zaljevskih susjeda nezavisnost Katara i način na koji razmišljaju građani te zemlje, prije svega o viziji budućnosti Bliskog istoka. Doha negira te optužbe i odbacuje zahtjeve susjeda, kao što je gašenje Al Jazeere, zatvaranje turske vojne baze u Kataru, plaćanje reparacija te podvrgavanje mjesečnim revizijama, kako bi se osiguralo da se ne krše bilo koje od kontrolnih mjera koje su nametnule 4 države. Katarski emir smatra da Ujedinjeni Arapski Emirati, Saudijska Arabija, Bahrein i Egipat žele promjenu vlasti u Kataru, te da ovo nije prvi put da tako nešto pokušavaju. U početku je američki predsjednik Donald Trump podržavao blokadu, dok je Pompeov prethodnik, nedavno smijenjeni Rex Tillerson, otkrivio Saudijsku Arabiju i njene saveznike za zastoj u rješavanju krize. Američki zvaničnici su kazali da je Pompeo pozvao na okončanje blokade, jer Sjedinjene Američke Države smatraju da je time Iranu omogućeno da iskoristi razjedinjenost u zaljevu, kako bi povećao utjecaj u Jemenu, Iraku, Libanu i Siriji. Americi je bitan Katar jer se tu nalazi američka vojna baza Al Udeid sa 10.000 američkih vojnika i služi kao sjedište centralne komande američkih zračnih snaga. Katar je također jedan od najvećih kupaca američke vojne opreme.
Iako jedna od najmanjih, Katar slovi za najbogatiju državu po glavi stanovnika. Evo i nekih brojki. Detaljnije o tome kako se Doha nosi sa zaljevskom krizom pojašnjava nam Cinzia Biancha, analitičarka iz istraživačkog centra Gulf State Analytics. All right, Cinzia, once again, hello and welcome to Al Jazeera. Now, since June 2017, 4 Arab countries have mounted a land, sea and air blockade of Qatar. Numerous efforts at mediation made by fellow Gulf states and European countries have failed. How would you assess the current state of affairs? Does it have to get worse before it gets any better?
Well, as you would say, it is in a phase of stagnation. As you were mentioning, the crisis has been going on for a year, and now Qatar itself has developed alternative routes for import and export of goods, including strategic goods, of course. But also the other regional countries have developed their own ways of cope with the new dynamics. And Qatar politically has been developing and diversifying its relations at the regional level as well as the global level, and strengthening relations with key players such as the Asian countries and European countries. Therefore, what we see is that everybody has been finding a modus vivendi with this new situation, which on one hand it's positive because of course it minimizes the negative impacts. On the other hand is negative because it minimizes the push for a solution, a long-lasting solution. The urge is not there as much as it was in the past.
Would you say that Doha has shown remarkable resilience? Would you agree that against all odds, Qatar has neutralized the effects of the blockade and rather quickly accommodated to the new reality?
Yes, there's been surprising resilience and strength shown in Doha, in Qatar, to adapt itself to the situation and to try and manage the crisis. So I would say excellent crisis management skills. On the other hand, it's not to say that Qatar is being granitic in its position. It is also being flexible, and it is also being more inclined than the others, of course, to get to a compromise, because it's always, at the end of the day, a small country which is being targeted by much bigger neighbors. So there are two levels. There is a level on the surface whereby there has been remarkable resilience and strength, and another level which is deeper, which has been about political flexibility.
Now, has the presence of the Turkish military base here in Qatar and enhanced trade with Iran paved the road toward closer cooperation between these three countries?
With Turkey, Qatar and Turkey bilateral relations, definitely. It's a dynamic that has been developing for a number of years already. It has had a remarkable intensity after 2011. And it's been building and building and building. So definitely the fact that Turkish President Erdogan was so quick in stepping up and staying by the side of Qatar by sending here troops, actual troops, which acted as a deterrent, an ulterior deterrent to a military escalation, has strengthened the relations between these two countries in a significant way. With Iran, it's a different, more complex situation. Of course, on one hand, it's been important that Iran has offered much needed support for food security and water security to help Qatar cope with the crisis. On the other hand, it remains this layer of political differences and divergences in regional dossiers, which makes it very complex to crystallize these relations into something deeper.
Now, Oman has publicly stayed silent on the Gulf crisis, but behind the scenes, Muscat has been aiding Doha in getting around the blockade while financially benefiting from strengthened business ties with these two countries. Now, how exactly is Muscat managing to balance itself between Riyadh, Abu Dhabi, Tehran and Doha?
This is a very good question, and Oman is in a very peculiar situation in the region. As you were mentioning, it's the ultimate balancer. It's a small country that has had to balance a very complex set of relations, and indeed, behind the scenes, Oman has been quite vocal as well in highlighting the problems that it perceives as stemming from this crisis. One of those problems is pushing Muscat towards picking a side, which is something that the current Sultan is not willing to do under any circumstances. So they have been doing their best with their geopolitical capital, which is significant. They have a geographic position that is strategic, and it's of big importance to international trade routes, including in energy and other strategic goods. And they have been managing as well their set of diversified political relations, including with the United States, the United Kingdom, but also China and other players.
Now, do you see the Gulf Cooperation Council, the GCC, as being de facto broken up and no longer serving its purpose?
So the GCC on the surface is continuing its most technical functions. The GCC was never actually given the chance to be a political player per se, so a collective body that would make foreign policy or security policy making and decisions. It never had a real chance because the individual countries had always some sort of red lines and differences. Right now, it's just brought to the surface these differences, and at the level of the institution, it's very hard to imagine that in the future it could go any forward. On the contrary, it could go backward and become sort of an empty shell that is there and works along with the technical matters and some limited issues, but not with the broader and more strategic issues.
Right. Cinzia, thank you so much for your time. It was a pleasure having you on Al Jazeera.
Thank you very much.
Saudijska Arabija i nekoliko arapskih zemalja počele su vojnu intervenciju u Jemenu 2015. godine. Zbog čega su to učinile i kakve su rezultate postigle, pogledajte u grafici koja slijedi. Jemenske pobunjenike Huse, koji se bore protiv arapske koalicije, podržava i naoružava Iran. Ulogu Irana na Bliskom istoku pojašnjava nam Kayhan Bazergar, direktor Instituta za bliskoistočne strateške studije u Teheranu. Now, Mr. Kayhan, once again, hello and welcome to Al Jazeera. Now, many in the Arab world will say that Iran is waging a sectarian conflict and supporting Shia groups in Iraq, in Yemen, in Lebanon, even parts of eastern Saudi Arabia. What is the view from Tehran? Is it seen as a geopolitical or a sectarian conflict?
First of all, thank you very much. I think the geopolitical logic for Iranian presence is more significant than focusing on the ideological sectarian context of this issue. And this comes mostly from the fact that the regional threats are becoming more important for Iran and more actual. And this has been true since the emergence of Daesh, the so-called Islamic states for Iraq and Sham. And this is because of the fact that Iran felt that a non-state group is somehow challenging Iran nation state, a kind of civilizational threat for Iran because they came close to the Iranian border in Iraq. Therefore, Iran needed to react, and this was not because of Iran felt that ideologically has some commitments in battling Daesh because of this sectarian politics. It was rather because of this feeling of national security by disintegration of Iraq in that time, which Iran reacted very fast and naturally.
Now, with regard to the Gulf, does Iran see Saudi Arabia and the Gulf Cooperation Council as rivals for power, or is there room for cooperation?
Well, actually, if we put it in a kind of cooperation, we will get to answer in a better way. The issue of Iran's presence in Iraq and Syria is more security-oriented issue. But the issue in the Persian Gulf is different because it relates to Iran's economic security. Iran exportation of oil is going from the Strait of Hormuz, and it's somehow vulnerable in the way of expanding its economy because this is the only way of Iran's access to the free world. A lot of, transition is happening from the Persian Gulf. Therefore, I think it is important to understand that how much Iran feels that the issue in the context of the GCC is very sensitive for Iran. Iran has been very somehow critical and at the same time very sensitive of dealing with the GCC issues. For instance, Iran didn't see the Qatari issue and crisis as an opportunity. It felt that it is a threat, and it did not take advantage of the issue at the expense of Saudi Arabia. I remember that the debate was open inside the Iranian society, but at the same time, the dominant view was that Iran should be neutral in a way to somehow having its bilateral relations with Qatar when it goes to the help of economic issues, and at the same time try to put it in a somehow neutral position so that the challenge does not become more deeper and deeper. Therefore, that leads me to think that the issues of the region is sensitive for Iran's national interest and security, and Iran would like to somehow stay neutral and positive to solving the regional issues.
Now, why has it been in Iran's strategic interest to have access to the Mediterranean? Why has this been a feature of Iranian but also Persian foreign policy since antiquity?
Well, of course, putting in this issue in the context of Persian Empire is a little bit inaccurate in a way that you can say the Persian Empire is a reality, it's a historical reality, but at the same time you cannot put it in the kind that Iran's presence in this bridge you're mentioning is expansionist, or Iran has some aims to expand its power in this area. I would rather put it in a more defensive reactions and more geopolitical context, because each state in the region would like to somehow having friendly states in its neighborhood. It's quite natural that the states would like to not letting anti-states or anti-their government states come to the region. And for Iran, it was very obvious because the presence of anti-Iranian governments in Iraq, in Afghanistan, brought a lot of challenges for Iran, and it has been very costly. Therefore, the logic is that you should have a you should have friendly states so that you can preempt threats from happening. And this is, I can tell you, this is only for the time of insecurity. We had the experience of Iraq, for instance. You might argue that, you know, Iran, for instance, is supporting, you know, Shiite militias in Iraq. But at the same time, I would say that this is the argument that is becoming significant in the time of insecurity. When you have insecure, you know, governments around yourself, you would try to somehow diffuse those threats. So in Iran's strategy, the thinking is that we should have friendly states trying to preempt, you know, threats from happening to Iranian border somehow.
As the current sectarian divisions deepen, and as many people, more and more people in the Arab world view these ongoing geopolitical conflicts as having a deeply sectarian nature, will Iran have more difficulty presenting itself as a pan-Islamist leader and a protector of disenfranchised Muslim minorities?
Well, the idea of you know, Iranian revolution was an ideological idea. I would say that this still stays in Iranian critical intellectual view of the regional issues somehow. But put it in a foreign policy format and conduct is rather nowadays inaccurate in a way that trying to somehow you know, having relations with the states and at the same time with some political movements. In my belief, Iran in the course of the revolution has been trying to adjust these two aspects of its foreign policy conducts, and it has somehow been successful in somehow compromising between these two aspects. To be honest, when it goes to the Palestinian cause, it is not just a governmental policy. It's coming from the middle class sympathy towards, you know, dealing with a humanitarian cause in the region. So it is not that, you know, just put it in the governmental issue. It is coming from the state's reactions again to, you know, to dealing with the regional issues. As I mentioned, when it goes to the neighborhood, it's very strong in geopolitical aspects. When it goes too far, you know, and dealing with some political movement, this is the sympathy that is coming from the society to somehow support, and this is from the ideological values of the Islamic revolution. But I would say that this is not that much showing itself in the foreign policy conduct somehow.
Now, finally, a number of Turkish intellectuals and analysts that I spoke to, they see Iranian moves in Syria and in Iraq as being a threat to the interests of Turkey, since these moves bring Iranian proxies closer to the Turkish border. My question to you is, should Ankara be worried about the movement of Iranian proxies, Iranian paramilitary militias, closer to the Turkish border?
Well, the sense of insecurity does not exist, and it's not real between Iran and Turkey. The government of Turkey might take some actions in its border, which is coming from its national security concerns, but we cannot say that Iran and Turkey are somehow endangering their interests in northern Syria. I think what they are doing is that they have a common sense of national security threats, and they would like to cooperate in a way.
Including the PKK, for example, which is seen as a threat by both countries.
By both countries, and at the same time, separatist movements. You know, when it goes to Syria, the disintegration of Syria is important for both Turkey and Iran. Iran is overtly you know, saying this. You might say that Iran is supporting the Assad government in Syria, but at the same time, Turkey is in favor of this policy too. But perhaps Turkey has some challenges in saying this. But at the same time, I think Turkish policy is becoming more significant in the way of keeping the state intact in Syria. Therefore, but the issue between Iran and Turkey is that they cooperate because they need each other, and they realize that the dynamism of the regional politics, you know, force them to cooperate with each other. And the fact of the matter is that, you know, Turkey and Iran do not see each other as a national security threats. Therefore, they can, while they have some divisions in their regional views, but at the same time, there are a lot of commonalities between the two countries that force the two countries to cooperate. So the ultimate goal and the ultimate result of Iran-Turkey relations is not rivalry, it's not divisions on strategic issues. They put it in a more long-term situation and relations. So we should take this also as a matter of significance.
Right, Mr. Kayhan, it was a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Američki državni sekretar Mike Pompeo pozvao je na jedinstvo zaljevskih zemalja i rješavanje međusobnih nesuglasica tokom nedavne posjete Saudijskoj Arabiji. Vlada u Dohi je od početka krize čvrstog stava da je spremna na dijalog, ali da o njenom suverenitetu nema rasprave. Katarski zvaničnici su stava da se treba prvo ukinuti blokada, a tek onda razgovarati o vanjsko-političkim nesuglasicama. Bilo je to sve u ovom specijalnom izdanju emisije Granice istoka iz Dohe. Cijelu emisiju možete pogledati na našoj web stranici balkans.aljazeera.net. Hvala na pažnji.